I'm Sophie, and I thought I had my life all figured out. Married at 26, a cozy apartment, a love story that started with stolen glances in college. But lately, the silence between me and Ethan, my husband, has grown louder than any words we used to share. I felt like a ghost in my own home, invisible, aching for something to reignite the fire I've lost. So, last weekend, when Ethan left for a fishing trip and didn't even bother to check in, I made a choice, one that led me into a neon-lit world of temptation, where every beat of the music pulled me further from the vows I made. What happened in the shadows of that nightclub changed everything, and now I'm standing on the edge of a secret that could shatter my entire life. Will I confess, or will I keep it buried? Picture this. I'm standing at the edge of my own life, toes curling over a precipice I didn't even see forming until now. My name's Sophie, I'm 26, and I've been trying to piece together what happiness looks like for the past few years. I've got a ring on my finger, a promise made to Ethan, my husband of 3 years. He's 28, a man of few words, with a rough-around-the-edges kind of allure that drew me in back in college. We collided in a whirlwind of late-night study sessions and stolen glances, falling hard and fast. The day after we tossed our graduation caps in the air, we said "I do," thinking we'd figured out forever. But forever feels like a long, quiet road these days. Our little apartment sits tucked away in a suburban corner, a modest space that's more mismatched than charming. The furniture doesn't quite fit together. A thrift store couch with faded floral patterns, a coffee table with a wobbly leg, and a fridge perpetually stocked with Ethan's beer cans. Their aluminum glint, a constant reminder of his presence, even when he's not here. I'm a graphic designer, working from home, which sounds like a dream until you realize the silence of these walls can be louder than any city street. My days are spent hunched over a laptop, crafting visuals for clients I'll never meet, while the world outside my window moves on without me. Isolation creeps in like a slow fog, and I'm left wondering when I started feeling so alone in a space meant for two. Ethan and I, we're not what we used to be. There was a time when we couldn't stop talking, when every conversation felt like uncovering a new layer of each other. Now, we're down to the bare minimum, polite nods, quick updates about the day, and a whole lot of unspoken words hanging in the air. I catch myself staring at him sometimes, trying to find the man I fell for, but it's like I'm living with a shadow of who he was. The distance between us isn't just physical, it's a chasm I don't know how to cross. I keep hoping for a spark, a moment that pulls us back, but instead, I'm met with empty spaces where connection used to be. I've heard whispers of other lives, other people, through mutual friends. Guys like Ryan, with his confident stride and a smile sharp enough to cut through any tension. Chris, whose easy laugh seems to lighten any room he's in. And Mateo, intense and thoughtful, with eyes that seem to see right through you. I don't know them, not really, just names tossed around in passing conversations, but their presence in my thoughts feels like a reminder of a world beyond these four walls. A world I'm not sure I'm brave enough to step into, but one I can't stop wondering about. Most nights, I find myself glued to my phone, thumb hovering over Ethan's name in my messages, waiting for a reply that never seems to come. It's a habit now, this waiting, this quiet ache that sits heavy in my chest. But last Friday, it all hit a breaking point. Ethan had packed up his fishing gear before the sun even peeked through the curtains, tossing a quick, "I'll check in" over his shoulder as he headed out the door for a weekend getaway with his buddies. I stood there in the doorway, watching his truck disappear down the street, a mix of hope and dread churning in my gut. He'd promised to keep in touch, but by midday, there was nothing. Not a text, not a call, just silence. I spent hours pacing our cramped apartment, my bare feet wearing a path into the already threadbare carpet. I'd pick up my phone, dial his number, and listen to the endless rings until his voicemail kicked in. Each unanswered call felt like a tiny rejection, a little stab that cut deeper every time. I left messages, first casual, just checking in, then more insistent, my voice cracking with a neediness I hated hearing in myself. "Ethan, just let me know you're okay, please." By the fifth voicemail, I was practically pleading, and I couldn't stand the sound of my own desperation anymore. In a fit of frustration, I hurled the phone onto the couch, watching it bounce off the faded cushions and land with a pathetic thud on the floor. I was done waiting. I wandered into the bathroom, flicking on the harsh fluorescent light, and caught my reflection in the mirror. I barely recognized the woman staring back at me. Dark circles shadowed my eyes, like I hadn't slept in weeks, and my shoulders slumped as if the weight of everything was physically pulling me down. I felt invisible, like I was fading into the background of my own life, a ghost in my own story. Unwanted. Unseen. The thoughts swirled, dark and heavy, until something snapped inside me. I couldn't keep drowning in this. I needed to take back some control, to feel something other than this hollow ache. Determined, I stormed into the bedroom and started rummaging through my closet, shoving aside old sweaters and jeans until my fingers brushed against something silky. There it was, a short, shimmery black dress I hadn't worn since my college days, a relic of a bolder, freer version of myself. I pulled it out, the fabric catching the light, and without overthinking, I slipped it on. It hugged my curves in a way that sent a jolt of adrenaline through me, a reminder of a time when I felt alive, desired. I stood in front of the full-length mirror, turning side to side, feeling the hem brush against my thighs, and for the first time in days, a flicker of power surged through me. I wasn't done yet. I grabbed my curling iron, letting the heat transform my limp hair into soft waves that cascaded over my shoulders. Then I reached for a tube of bold red lipstick, painting my lips with a deliberate stroke, the color a defiant statement against the drabness of my everyday life. With each swipe of that crimson shade, I felt like I was reclaiming a piece of myself, a piece I'd buried under years of routine and silence. I slipped into a pair of heels, the click of them against the hardwood floor echoing like a battle cry. I was ready to step out, to escape the suffocating stillness of my apartment, and into a world that might just remind me who I used to be. The nightclub was a sensory assault from the moment I pushed through the heavy doors. Strobe lights sliced through the darkness, flashing in perfect rhythm with the pounding bass that vibrated through my chest. The air was thick with the scent of sweat and sweet cocktails, and the crowd, a sea of strangers, moved as one, their laughter and shouts blending into a chaotic symphony. Bodies pressed close, skin glistening under the flickering lights, and I felt like an outsider stepping into a wild, untamed world. I made my way to the bar, the counter sticky under my fingertips as I leaned in to order my first drink, a vodka soda, something sharp to cut through the nerves knotting my stomach. The bartender slid the glass over with a nod, and I wrapped my fingers around the cold surface, taking a tentative sip. The burn of the alcohol was grounding, but I still felt out of place, like a puzzle piece forced into the wrong spot. I told myself to breathe, to let go, to just be here for once. After downing that first drink, I ordered a second, the liquid courage starting to loosen the tight grip of anxiety in my chest. I moved toward the edge of the dance floor, letting the music pull me in, my hips swaying hesitantly at first. The rhythm was infectious, and soon I was moving with a little more confidence, letting the beat drown out the nagging thoughts in my head. That's when I saw them, Ryan, Chris, and Mateo, emerging from the crowd like they'd been waiting for me all along. Ryan led the way, his cocky grin flashing under the lights as he tossed out a cheesy line about how I must have fallen from somewhere celestial to end up here. I couldn't help but smirk at the audacity, but it was Chris who broke the tension with his warm, inviting laugh, teasing Ryan for sounding like a bad rom-com. And then there was Mateo, standing slightly apart, his quiet intensity pinning me in place. His dark eyes locked onto mine, and for a moment, the noise of the club faded. I felt seen, truly seen, in a way I hadn't been in years, and it sent a shiver down my spine. They asked me to dance, their voices a chorus of encouragement, and I hesitated. My wedding ring felt like a lead weight on my finger, a silent reminder of promises made. But the music, the energy, the way they looked at me, it was all too much to resist. I nodded, a small, reckless yes, and let them pull me into the heart of the dance floor. Their hands brushed against mine as we moved, light touches that sent sparks through me. Ryan spun me with a playful flair, his compliments about my moves making my cheeks flush. Chris kept close, his laughter a constant warmth, while Mateo's presence was a quiet storm, every glance from him heavy with unspoken meaning. They shared silly stories between songs, tales of dumb bets and wild nights out, and I found myself laughing, really laughing, for the first time in what felt like forever. They bought me another drink, the glass cool against my heated skin, and I drank it down, letting the buzz mix with the thrill of being desired, of being alive in this moment. The night stretched on, hours blurring into a haze of music and motion. I lost track of time, lost track of myself, caught up in the way they made me feel, like I was the only person in this crowded, chaotic space. We drifted to a darker corner of the club, away from the pulsing lights, where the shadows offered a kind of dangerous privacy. My heart was racing, not just from the dancing, but from the pull I felt toward them, a magnetic force I couldn't ignore. Boundaries I'd always held tight started to blur, and in that shadowed corner, the air between us grew thick with unspoken tension. I could feel the heat of their proximity, the way their gazes lingered, igniting something reckless inside me. My mind screamed to step back, to remember the vows I'd made, but my body betrayed me, leaning into the thrill of the forbidden. It was as if the world had narrowed to just us, the music a distant hum, and in that moment, I let myself fall into a dance of temptation, a silent agreement that crossed lines I never thought I'd tread. What happened there, in the dim haze of that club, was a secret carved into the night. A moment of weakness, where I surrendered to desire, letting it paint over the emptiness I'd carried for so long. I won't spell it out, but you can imagine the kind of wildfire that sparked, the kind that burns through restraint and leaves ashes of regret in its wake. The cab ride home felt like a descent into a different kind of darkness. I sat in the back seat, staring out the window as the city lights streaked by in a blur of neon and shadow. My pulse hadn't slowed. It thrummed with a mix of adrenaline and shame, each beat a reminder of the boundary I'd shattered. The driver didn't say much, just the occasional grunt as he navigated the late-night streets, and I was grateful for the silence. My thoughts were loud enough, a chaotic storm of what-ifs and self-loathing. How had I let myself go so far? The memory of those stolen moments clung to me like a second skin, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd left a piece of myself back there in that club, a piece I might never get back. When the cab finally pulled up outside my apartment building, I fumbled with my wallet, hands trembling as I handed over the fare. The cool night air hit me as I stepped out, but it did nothing to clear the fog in my head. I climbed the familiar steps to our floor, each one heavier than the last, my heels clicking against the concrete in a rhythm that felt like a countdown to judgment. At the door, my fingers shook as I dug for my keys, the metal slipping through my grip twice before I managed to fit it into the lock. My heart was a drum in my chest, pounding with the fear of what I might find on the other side. Had Ethan come home early? Would he be waiting, his quiet eyes seeing right through me, knowing everything without a word? I pushed the door open slowly, the creak of the hinges sounding like a scream in the stillness. The apartment was dark, save for the faint, flickering glow of the TV casting ghostly shapes across the living room. My breath caught as I saw him. Ethan, slumped in his favorite armchair, a half-empty beer bottle dangling loosely from his hand. His head was tilted back, mouth slightly open, soft snores rumbling from his chest. He looked so peaceful, so unaware, and it twisted something deep inside me. I stepped closer, the scent of fish and lake water hitting me like a punch, clinging to his jacket draped over the armrest. He'd been out there, living his own escape by the water, while I'd been unraveling everything we'd built in a single, reckless night. My stomach churned, a nauseating mix of guilt and dread, as I stood there in my club dress, the fabric suddenly feeling like a costume of betrayal. My lipstick was smudged, a crimson stain of my shame, and I felt like an intruder in my own home, a stranger wearing the skin of someone he trusted. I wanted to wake him. I wanted to shake him awake and spill everything, to let the words pour out like poison, to beg for forgiveness or scream until the weight lifted off my chest. But my feet wouldn't move, rooted to the spot by the fear of what his reaction might be. Would he look at me with disgust? Would that quiet disappointment in his eyes cut deeper than any shouted words? Or worse, would he just not care? I couldn't bear the thought of any of it, so instead I turned away, tiptoeing toward the bathroom with the stealth of someone who'd already lost everything. I shut. The morning light creeps through the kitchen window, pale and unforgiving, as I sit at the table with a cup of coffee clutched between my hands. My fingers tremble, not from the caffeine, but from the storm of emotions still raging inside me after last night. I barely slept, my mind replaying every moment from the club, every reckless choice, like a loop I can't escape. Across the apartment, I hear the faint rustle of blankets and a low groan. Ethan's awake. My heart clenches as I brace myself, staring into the dark liquid in my mug as if it holds some kind of answer. The floor creaks under his weight as he shuffles into the kitchen, his hair a mess, eyes bleary from what I can only assume is a hangover from his fishing trip. He looks like he's been dragged through the mud, and yet there's something so painfully familiar about the way he moves, the way he carries himself, that it twists the knife of guilt deeper into my chest. He mumbles a gruff morning as he passes by, not even glancing my way, and I manage a weak, "Hey," in return. The silence that follows is suffocating, a thick fog settling between us as he rummages through the cabinets for a glass. I want to ask about his weekend, to fill this void with something normal, but the words stick in my throat. Instead, he breaks the quiet with a half-hearted comment about the trip being fine. His voice flat, like he's reciting a script. He doesn't ask about my weekend, doesn't even seem to notice the tension radiating off me. It's as if I'm invisible again, just like before, and that realization stings more than I expected. I watch him shuffle over to the fridge, the door creaking as he grabs another beer despite the early hour. The pop of the tab echoes in the stillness, and I can't help but stare at the can in his hand, a symbol of how little has changed, how little he sees. My secret sits heavy in my chest, a weight I can barely carry. Every fiber of me screams to let it out, to shatter this fragile silence with the truth of what I've done. I imagine the words spilling from my lips, raw and unfiltered, about the night at the club, the way I let myself get lost in the heat of forbidden moments. I can almost hear myself confessing how I danced too close, how I let boundaries dissolve in the shadows, how I surrendered to a pull I couldn't resist. But as I open my mouth, nothing comes. My tongue feels like lead, and I clamp my lips shut, the confession dying before it can live. Instead, I just sit there, gripping my coffee mug tighter, the ceramic warm against my cold, shaky hands, while inside, I'm a screaming mess of regret and defiance. The mundane takes over, a cruel contrast to the chaos in my head. Ethan slumps onto the couch in the living room, flipping through TV channels with the remote, the sound of canned laughter and static filling the space between us. I pretend to be engrossed in my phone, scrolling aimlessly through feeds I don't care about, my thumb moving on autopilot. But my eyes keep darting to him, to the way he sits so casually, so oblivious, with that beer resting on his knee. It's surreal, how normal this looks from the outside, how we're just two people sharing a quiet morning, when inside, I'm unraveling. My mind is a battlefield, torn between the guilt of what I've done and the memory of how alive I felt in those stolen hours. I can still feel the pulse of the music, the heat of unfamiliar hands, the rush of being wanted in a way I haven't felt in years. It's a memory that burns, both a wound and a flame, and I hate how much I cling to it. Then it hits me, like a wave crashing over jagged rocks. A realization so sharp it steals my breath. I don't regret what I did as much as I thought I would. I should be drowning in shame, and part of me is. But there's another part, a quieter, fiercer part, that refuses to let go. The rest of the day passes in a blur, a haze of mundane motions that feel like they belong to someone else's life. Ethan and I move through the apartment like ghosts, barely acknowledging each other as we go through the motions. We order takeout, some greasy Chinese food from the place down the street, and sit at the kitchen table in a silence so thick it feels like it could choke me. I poke at my fried rice with a plastic fork, my appetite nowhere to be found, while my mind spins in endless loops, replaying every choice, every moment that led me to this fractured point. Ethan hands me a spare fork when mine slips from my grip, his rough fingers brushing against mine in a fleeting touch. Once that small gesture would have sent warmth flooding through me, a tiny spark of connection that reminded me why I fell for him. Now, it feels hollow, like a memory of something I can't reach anymore, and I pull my hand back a little too quickly, hoping he doesn't notice the flinch. Later, as we slump on the couch with the TV droning in the background, I hear him chuckle at some ridiculous commercial, a talking dog selling car insurance or something equally absurd. That laugh, low and rough, used to be one of my favorite sounds in the world. I'd do anything to hear it back when we were tangled up in late-night conversations, or sneaking off to steal moments together during college. Now, it's like listening to a stranger, a sound I barely recognize, and it cuts deeper than I expect. I glance over at him, his profile lit by the flickering screen, and wonder when we became so distant, when the man I swore to love forever turned into someone I can't even reach across this faded floral couch. My chest aches with the weight of it all, the unspoken truths piling up like bricks between us, and I turn my gaze back to the TV, pretending to watch while my thoughts spiral. As the hours drag on, I find myself sinking deeper into reflection, piecing together the jagged edges of my life at 26. I've spent so much time trying to be what I thought I should be, wife, partner, the quiet support in the background, that I lost sight of who I am underneath it all. Sitting here now with the weight of my choices pressing down on me, I've come to a hard, unshakable truth. Sometimes, you have to lose yourself completely to figure out who you're meant to be. I've wandered so far from the woman I was, the one who laughed freely and chased dreams without fear, that I barely recognize her in my memories. But last night, in the chaos of neon lights and pounding music, I caught a glimpse of her again, even if it came at a cost I'm still grappling with. That glimpse, as fleeting and dangerous as it was, reminded me that I'm still in here somewhere, waiting to be found. Night falls, wrapping the apartment in a heavy stillness, and I'm still on the couch, curled into one corner with a throw blanket draped over my legs. Ethan's dozed off again in his armchair, his head tipped back, soft snores rumbling in the quiet. The TV is muted now, casting a faint blue glow across the room, and I'm left alone with my thoughts, my fingers absently twirling the wedding ring on my left hand. The metal is cool against my skin, a constant reminder of promises made under brighter skies, promises that feel so far away now. I stare at the band, watching it catch the dim light as I turn it over and over, as if the motion might unlock some answer, some clarity about what I'm supposed to do next. Do I stay with him, try to rebuild what's crumbled between us, even if it means burying parts of myself again? Do I walk away, step into the unknown, and risk losing the only stability I've known for years? And the biggest question of all, do I tell him about that night? About the lines I crossed in the shadows of a crowded club? About the wildfire I let consume me for just a few stolen hours? I don't have the answers, not yet. But one thing I do know with a fierce, unyielding certainty: don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this story. This will help us create more engaging stories for you.